All right, let's dive into one of the most pivotal, most intense nights in all of history, the arrest and trial of Jesus as told in John chapter 18. We're going to walk through this moment by moment, painting a picture so clear you won't be able to forget it. So our story for tonight has 6 main scenes. It kicks off with a tense confrontation in a garden, moves to a backroom interrogation, we'll see a heartbreaking denial in a courtyard, and then it all culminates in a trial, where 2 very different kinds of kingdoms collide. And you've got to remember, this all happens in the span of just a few hours. So here's the map of the night. We start late in the Gethsemane garden. After midnight, we're in Annas' courtyard for a shady interrogation. Then, before dawn, it's on to Caiaphas' house, and it all ends in the early morning at the Roman headquarters, the Praetorium. Let's start the clock. Okay, so our story begins in a place that should be all about peace, a familiar garden. But that quiet is about to be absolutely shattered by the sound of marching soldiers and a friend who has become a traitor. You know, this wasn't just some random park. For Jesus and his disciples, this was a sanctuary. This was their spot. And knowing that makes the betrayal that's about to happen feel so much more personal, so much more jarring. So picture this. It's dark. Jesus and his disciples cross a little brook to get into the garden, but someone else knows this spot all too well, Judas. And suddenly the peace is just gone. You have this invasion of light and steel, a whole detachment of soldiers with lanterns and torches and weapons, their armor glinting in the dark. Now, in this incredibly tense moment, Jesus doesn't run. He doesn't hide. The text says he knows exactly what's coming, and he steps forward right into the torchlight and takes complete control. His question, "Whom are you seeking?" Well, that's not a question of fear. It's a challenge. He is meeting this head on.
They call out his name, Jesus of Nazareth. And his answer is so simple, so powerful. Just, I am he. And as he says it, we get this chilling detail. Judas is standing right there with them, caught in the same torchlight. He's officially picked his side.
Now, these 2 words, I am he, they are everything. In the original Greek, it's ego eimi. And that is the exact same phrase that God uses to identify himself in the Old Testament. So this isn't just him saying, yep, that's me. This is a declaration of his divine identity. It's a lightning bolt of a statement. And get this, the effect of those words is physical. It's immediate. The moment Jesus speaks, it's like an invisible force just slams into the soldiers. This entire group of armed men doesn't just stumble. They're thrown backwards. They collapse on the ground. It's this stunning visual proof of where the real power is in this garden. So as the soldiers are scrambling back to their feet, Jesus calmly asks them again, "Who are you looking for?" And once they say it's him, he lays out his terms. "If you're here for me, then let these men go." You see, even in the middle of his own arrest, his first priority is protecting his friends, making good on his promise that he wouldn't lose a single one. But then, boom, chaos erupts. Peter, ever the impulsive one, whips out a sword and slices off the ear of the high priest's servant. But Jesus shuts it down immediately. "Put your sword away," he tells him. "This isn't a battle to be won with violence. This is a path he has to walk, a cup, as he calls it, that he has to drink." So the confrontation in the garden is over. The scene shifts. Jesus is now a prisoner. And as they lead him into the heart of his enemy's territory, his closest friend, Peter, is following from a distance, about to face a totally different kind of test. The soldiers grab Jesus, they bind his hands, probably pretty roughly, and they don't take him to a real court. No, they take him to the house of a man named Annas, the real political power player behind the scenes, and we're reminded that his son-in-law, Caiaphas, had already said it was a good idea for one man to die for the nation. The verdict was in before the trial even started. So while all that's happening, Peter manages to follow Jesus right into the courtyard. But as he's trying to just blend in, the girl watching the door asks him a simple question. And his first denial comes out so fast. "I am not." And there he is, standing by a charcoal fire with the officers, just trying to disappear. But that fire isn't doing anything for the cold fear growing inside him. Inside, the high priest is trying to trap Jesus, grilling him about his teachings in this secret, unofficial interrogation. But Jesus just refuses to play their game. Imagine his voice, cutting through that tense room. "I spoke openly to the world. Why are you asking me? Ask the people who heard me." He completely flips it on them, demanding a public trial with real witnesses, not this sham in the middle of the night. And the response to his boldness? Violence. A sharp, stinging slap across the face from an officer. But Jesus doesn't back down. He just responds with pure logic. If I said something wrong, prove it. But if I told the truth, why did you hit me? Annas has no answer for that, so he just sends Jesus, still bound, off to the next stage of this fake trial. All right, now we're headed back outside to the courtyard, back to Peter, still standing by that fire. The questions aren't over for him, and the pressure is about to get a whole lot worse.
The pressure on Peter just keeps building. Someone else by the fire points him out, and his next denial is even stronger. I am not. And then comes the knockout blow. A relative of the guy whose ear Peter sliced off gets right in his face and says, "Wait a minute, didn't I see you in the garden with him?" And Peter denies it one last desperate time. And at that exact moment, a rooster crows, and the devastating prediction Jesus made comes true.
The Jewish trials, if you can even call them that, are over. As the sun comes up, they hand the case over to the real power in Jerusalem, the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate. And this is where the spiritual world collides head-on with the political one. So as morning breaks, the Jewish leaders march Jesus over to the Roman headquarters, but they stop outside. The irony here is just staggering. They refuse to go inside because they're afraid of becoming ritually unclean for the Passover holiday, while they're there demanding that an innocent man be executed. Pilate has to come out to them, and this little legal dance begins where it's obvious they only want one outcome, a Roman death sentence. Pilate decides to take Jesus inside, away from the screaming mob. And what happens next is one of the most incredible conversations in the entire Bible. It's a face-to-face meeting between two very, very different kinds of kings. So inside, it's just them. And Pilate asks the big question, "Are you the king of the Jews?" But Jesus completely redefines the conversation. He says, "My kingdom is not of this world." He explains that if it were, his followers would be fighting. But his kingdom isn't about power or territory. It's a kingdom built on truth. And his whole mission, he tells Pilate, is just to bear witness to the truth. And that leads to Pilate's famous, cynical, tired question. What is truth? You can just imagine him saying it with a sigh. This is a politician. He lives in a world of power plays and compromises. For him, truth is probably just whatever is convenient. And he's literally staring truth in the face and doesn't even recognize it. Pilate can see that Jesus is innocent. He's no threat to Rome. So he cooks up a plan to get him off the hook. But it's a plan that's going to backfire horribly by putting the final tragic decision into the hands of the people. So here's the choice Pilate lays out. There's a Passover tradition where they release one prisoner. So he offers them Jesus, a man he has just said is innocent, or a guy named Barabbas, who's described as a robber, probably a violent revolutionary. The choice could not be more stark, the Prince of Peace or a man of violence. Pilate offers them the choice, probably expecting them to make the obvious one. But instead, the crowd just roars back with one unified voice. Not this man, but Barabbas. They choose violence over peace. They reject the king whose kingdom was not of this world. And with that one shout, the path to the cross is set. And it leaves us with this question that's been echoing ever since. When we're faced with a truth that challenges our world, what do we choose?